Hey everyone, it's the Vigilante. So let's see what Snow White is after it's been released. We'll see what everyone's saying about it.
There are certain fundamental truths about this world which are so universal that anyone, no matter their race, colour or creed, can pretty much agree on them. 1. Never trust a post-Vindaloo fart. 2. Spreadable butter isn't. 3. Anytime a woman starts a sentence with, "a real man would," you know you're about to hear some weapons-grade retardation. And to that not-so-illustrious list, we can add that the Snow White live-action remake was, without a doubt, one of the worst ideas in the whole history of entertainment. Possibly the most predictable of all failures, a project conceived for all the wrong reasons, starring all the wrong people, pushing all the wrong messages, and telling the entirely wrong story. After all the delays and the controversies and the speculation that have been swirling around it for what feels like decades now, it was actually kinda weird to finally sit down and just watch this thing. Like meeting a celebrity after following their career for years. Not a good kind of celebrity like, more like a Jimmy Savile kind of celebrity. The kind that you're discreetly warned never to get into a lockable room alone with. But here it is, nonetheless, and now that I've finally suffered through nearly 2 hours of Snow White, I can confidently tell you that, yes, this film absolutely lived up to all my worst expectations, and in some cases even exceeded them. A bloated, overstuffed turkey of a production, weighed down by hammy acting, cheap costumes, horrendous CGI, and vomit-inducing cinematography that bungles most of the elements it steals from the original animated movie, abandons its classic ideals of self-sacrifice, heroism, and true love, and injects the lethal dose of the message, which is so redundant and thematically contradictory that it just gets abandoned by the ends. It's also laughably obvious where they've had to reshoot and rewrite big chunks of this movie in response to all the backlash.
I salute you for sitting through this movie because I know I couldn't do it. There's no way. After seeing that abomination of a trailer, and even without the backlash, this movie just looked god-awful. I had no want to sit there and see this. I never was a huge Snow White fan to begin with, but I would have watched it if they would have stuck true to the story and actually sat there and made it compelling and made a good damn trailer. This one, oh hell no. I salute you, Critical Drinker.
Entire subplots, characters, and setups are introduced and then abandoned without explanation, and the ending is so wildly anticlimactic and jarring that it makes World War Z look like a model of cinematic efficiency. Anyway, let's get the plot summary over with so we can put this turd behind us. The basic setup for Snow White is broadly similar to the original film. Snow White herself is born to the benevolent king and queen of a generic medieval fantasy land that tactfully goes unnamed. Although fuck me, they must have pretty good transportation links with the rest of the world because the population here is more ethnically diverse than central London. Anyway, Snow White's mum dies and her dad remarries Gal Gadot, who manipulates him into going off to war, where he promptly disappears and is never seen again. Oh no, guess she's gonna have to take control of everything. What a bind. Fast forward a few years and the kingdom's become a kind of dystopian nightmare where everyone's poor and hopeless and ruled over by an iron-fisted tyrant. It's a bit like modern day Britain, only with better sanitation and dental care. Anyway, after a confrontation with Snow White over a bandit named Jonathan who tried to steal some food from the castle, the evil queen decides the best thing to do is send her out into the forest where the huntsman can conveniently murder her. It's a bit extreme, but I'll let it slide. Naturally, the huntsman has second thoughts and decides to let her go, and after wandering alone for a while, she runs into 7 dwarves that I can only describe as the kind of thing that Cthulhu probably has nightmares about. I'm not kidding, man. The brief glimpses that you got of these things in the trailers are absolutely nothing compared to the existential horror of actually witnessing them on the big screen. These are nightmares made real. Like if you woke up in the middle of the night and saw Mr. Blobby standing at the foot of your bed, silent, motionless, watching you with those blank, lifeless eyes that bore into your very soul. So after crashing at their house for a while, eating their food and helping herself to all of their resources, Snow White helpfully forces them to clean up their own home while she prances around like she's on some mad acid trip.
So they changed the beginning of it except how the queen came to power. So instead of doing the mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all, that was the reason why the queen sent Snow White out into the forest to be killed. You know, because Snow White was deemed the fairest. But now, because she got mad because she didn't want to sit there and punish the bandit for stealing, so she sends her out into the forest to be killed for that reason? That is really? How did Disney think that was supposed to be a good idea? Disney, come on, you could have done better than that. And then sitting there having her come take up all the resources, eat all the dwarves' food, and then make them clean everything? Oh yeah, that is just modern woman propaganda right there. The only thing that they're missing is seeing Snow White being pregnant with a baby yelling at the dwarf after a hard day of work when you wonder if that woman has even left that couch to begin with.
Probably is, to be fair. I would be if I was in this fucking movie. Then for some reason she gets it into her head that her dad must still be alive, and the only way to find him is to seek out the bandits that lurk in the forests.
Right.
So naturally, she runs into Jonathan about 5 minutes after leaving the house so that the rest of the plot can happen, and he protects her from the evil queen's soldiers by taking an arrow that was meant for her, so she brings him back to the dwarves to get fixed up. Oh yeah, you know those retarded looking Starbucks baristas from those early set pictures that everyone thought were the dwarves? Well, those are the bandits, who are actually out of work actors forced to become thieves because the evil queen's taxation policies shut down their entire industry. Is that a reference to something? Is that a reference to something?
Is that a reference to something?
No idea. Anyway, Jonathan decides to lure the Queen's soldiers away to give Snow White time to escape, and then immediately gets captured because he's a bumbling idiot. And the evil Queen decides that she's had enough of this shit, frankly one sympathizes, so she turns herself into an old hag and manipulates Snow White into eating a poisoned apple that makes her go a bit dead. But that's okay because Jonathan escapes prison so that the rest of the plot can happen, and gives her the world's least passionate kiss, which brings her back to life so that she can begin her cunning plan to overthrow the Queen and take back her kingdom. Do you want to know what that plan is? Are you ready for the 4th dimensional quantum mega chest?
Hey, at least they got the poison apple thing correct. I'm surprised that they put that in there. I'm surprised they didn't change that part. But I don't blame the guy for doing the least most passionate kiss. Man, could you sit there and imagine having to kiss that girl? That guy deserves a pay raise for having to deal with that damn woman.
That she plays here that would probably give Christopher Nolan a brain hemorrhage? Well, she walks into town and then convinces the soldiers to turn against the evil queen because she can remember their names. Really? I'm not kidding, that's her plan. So the evil queen gets mad and smashes the magic mirror and then turns into black glass and shatters, and Snow White becomes the new queen, and that's it, they all live happily ever after. Now, there's a lot I want to say about this movie, but first, let us begin with the positives. And as hard as it might be to believe, most of them actually concern Rachel Zegler.
No way!
Now, don't get me wrong, she might be an obnoxious arsehole in the real world, but credit where credit's due here, she actually isn't terrible as Snow White.
It's not true! That's impossible!
I mean, her outfit looks like it cost like $100 off Amazon, her haircut makes Anton Chigurh like a cutting-edge trailblazer, her performance is a bit over the top and theatre kid at times, and her American accent comes and goes depending on whether or not she's in a reshoot, but I do get the impression she's at least trying to do her best with the material, and she can absolutely belt out the musical numbers, which is pretty much what you'd expect from a trained vocalist. The same cannot be said for Gal Gadot, however. It genuinely pains me to say this, but I think we all need to come to the acceptance that that girl cannot fucking act. It takes a special kind of charisma, presence, and dramatic range to play a good Disney villain, and well, Gal Gadot doesn't have it. Her delivery somehow manages to be wooden and scenery chewing at the same time, and when she has to deliver a big musical number, you can pinpoint the exact moment where they swap out her voice with someone who can actually sing.
Imagine there's no heaven.
Jonathan is yet another entry into the bumbling, forgettable, non-threatening male sidekick list of modern-day Disney heroes. There's brief moments where it seems like he might be—
Well, now that makes sense why Rachel Zegler was acting the way she was. She's the only one that did a good job on the acting part in that whole damn movie, which honestly, that doesn't really shock me because she did do a really good job in that spin-off movie of Hunger Games.
displaying the tiniest bit of attitude and heroism, but then it's immediately squashed to reinforce the idea that men are all just a bit useless. Visually, the film's an inconsistent mess. CGI Cthulhu nightmares aside, the colour scheme ranges from bleak washed-out grey castles and towns that look like Zack Snyder directed it, to a kind of over-the-top golden yellow piss filter for the CGI woodland scenes that's so excessive it actually makes your eyes start to hurt after a while. It's funny as well because there's like one scene that was filmed on location in a real forest, and the contrast between that and the CGI fantasy version is so jarring, I actually thought the action had shifted to a whole different country. Also, you can absolutely tell this movie's been reshot to fuck. The kiss scene where Jonathan brings Snow White back to life was absolutely added in later to try to appease fans of the original. Snow White herself has clearly been toned down in places to make her less obnoxious, and I'd be willing to bet about 90% of the bandits' screen time has been cut. Most of them don't even get a single line of dialogue, which once again had me questioning, why the fuck are they even in this movie? I think the biggest problem though is the ending. The original movie had the dwarves battling the evil queen to save Snow White, reinforcing the idea of reciprocal kindness and redemption, but here Snow White has to resolve everything by herself, and the result is that none of the other groups or factions have anything to do. Both the bandits and the dwarves, and even Jonathan, just kind of stand around watching the whole thing play out, and I couldn't help wondering, what is the film even trying to show us here? Snow White as a character seems to be all about equity and shared responsibility, rather than privilege and greedy self-interest, but when it comes to the crunch, she ends up having to do basically everything herself, which negates the very point the movie's been trying to make for the past 2 hours. It's this fundamental inability to understand what it's even trying to say, beyond the crushingly tired princess who saves herself trope that's now become the very cliche it worked so hard to overturn that—
Oh, come on, Critical Drinker. You know that's what Disney's been trying to do. They've been trying to sit there and erase men where the world don't need men, women can run the world, women can do everything men can do. Come on, that's what they've been trying to do. That's why they did it in Mulan, they did it in Aladdin, now they've done it in Snow White. I guarantee you next they're going to do it in Hercules. They're going to swap Hercules as a female, just you watch.
proves to be the film's real undoing. In short, Snow White is a modern day mess, a film that's basically been a disaster from start to finish, and now that it's finally out there and I've reviewed it, it's something I'm very much looking forward to tossing on the ash heap of history. Do yourself a big old favour, save yourself some time and money, and go watch the original instead.
Weird.
Anyway, that's all I've got for today. Go away now.
Oh, don't worry, Critical Drinker. I will not waste my money on seeing this movie. I salute you for you wasting your money and your time. But me, they couldn't even pay me to watch this damn movie. Well, that's it for my reaction. Let me know down in the comments if you agree with me or not. Please like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, stay vigilant.